Have you ever really stopped to think about sound? I mean, not just as something we hear, but as a physical force, an invisible energy that's constantly shaping our emotions, our world, and maybe even reality itself. Let's dive into this, because the sources for this explainer suggest that sound is one of the most powerful and honestly most overlooked forces in all of our lives.
I mean, just think about the difference between these two sounds. On one hand, you've got the jarring, chaotic energy of an argument. You can feel it, right? It makes you tense up. But on the other hand, you have a sweet whisper, and that brings a feeling of calm, of closeness. The idea here isn't just that this is psychology, it's physics. Different sounds carry completely different kinds of energy. One is harmful, and the other is beneficial.
So here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by looking at sound as this incredible invisible force. Then we'll jump back in time to some wild legends about sonic power. After that, we'll see how science can actually make this force visible, connect that to the good and bad sounds in our daily lives, and then, finally, figure out how you can start curating your own soundscape.
Okay, so let's start with the basic theory. Every single sound you can think of, from a car horn to a beautiful piece of music, is just a vibration. And the speed of that vibration, well, that's its frequency. You can think of it like the sound's unique fingerprint. And that frequency carries a very specific energy that affects everything around us, from our mood to, believe it or not, the very cells in our bodies.
Our source material actually gives this a name: sound wave energy. And the key thing to get here is that it has two sides. Depending on its frequency, its intention, a sound wave can be like a healing medicine that brings peace and order, or it can be a powerful weapon that creates chaos and destruction.
And this whole concept can be incredibly subtle. For instance, the author of our source shares this really personal story about the Buddhist chant Amitabha. A tiny, tiny change in the pronunciation of that first vowel, from a long ah to a long e, completely flips the energetic experience. One makes him feel like he's in a dark abyss. The other fills him with joy. It's a perfect example of how a small shift in frequency can have a huge impact.
So if a single vowel can change our inner world that much, it makes you wonder, right? Could sound have a massive physical impact on the outer world? Well, let's take a look at some of these incredible legends from history.
First, we have the Chinese legend of Meng Jiangnu. The story goes that when she found her husband's body buried in the Great Wall, her cry of pure, raw grief was so intense, the sonic energy was so powerful that it caused a massive section of the wall to just crumble. It suggests that a powerful emotion, when turned into sound, can become a real, physical, destructive force.
Then there's the super famous story of Jericho. The Bible says that the city's massive walls didn't fall because of siege engines or armies, they fell because of sound. The combined focused blast of trumpets and a unified shout from the people was apparently enough to bring the fortifications tumbling down. Here, sound isn't just a force, it's a coordinated weapon.
But, it's not all about destruction. Legends also say sound can be a tool for creation. I mean, some stories about the Egyptian pyramids claim that those giant multi-ton stones weren't dragged into place. They were supposedly levitated, lifted into the air by priests using specific chants and incantations. Imagine that, using sound to literally overcome gravity.
Now look, it's really easy to hear these stories and just dismiss them as, myths. Fantastic stories, but not reality. But what if there's a kernel of scientific truth to them? Can sound actually organize and affect physical matter in such a dramatic way? This is where we pivot from these ancient mysteries to some pretty cool science. There's an experiment, and it just uses a metal plate, some sand, and a violin bow, but it gives us this stunning visual key to understanding the physical power of sound waves.
The experiment is so simple it's beautiful. You just take a metal plate, sprinkle a thin layer of sand on it. Then you draw a violin bow across the edge, which makes the plate vibrate. And as it vibrates, something almost magical happens. The sand, which was just a chaotic mess, doesn't just shake around. It instantly organizes itself into these intricate, beautiful geometric patterns.
So here's the takeaway. The Chladni experiment gives us real, tangible proof that sound vibrations aren't just invisible waves. They carry energy that can literally impose order onto physical stuff. It shows us, on a small scale, the exact same principle that those ancient legends were talking about. Sound creates structure.
Okay, so sound can move sand into patterns, and legend says it can crumble walls. But how does any of this apply to us, right here, right now, in our normal lives? Let's bring this whole concept right into our living rooms.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly, contrasting the two sides of this energy. On the good side, you have sounds of harmony,
beautiful music, a lover's whisper, a wise person's calm words, birds singing. And on the harmful side, you have sounds of chaos, nagging, shouting, angry arguments. The amazing thing is, we don't need anyone to teach us this. We instinctively feel the difference.
So the core principles from the source are actually pretty straightforward. Sounds that come from a place of positivity and harmony are good for us. Sounds that come from negativity and chaos are harmful. But this last point, this is the most powerful one. When you create a harmful sound, like shouting, that energy doesn't just go outward. You are at the absolute center of that vibration. You are harming yourself just as much, if not more, than the person you're directing it at.
And all of this leads us to our final and most practical point. If sound really is energy, and we're surrounded by it all the time, then that means we have a choice. We have a choice about the kind of energy we want to live in.
And the big takeaway here is so simple and so empowering. You don't need a scientist with a special device to tell you what's good for you. You just need to trust your own feelings. The sounds that bring you joy, the ones that give you peace and energy, those are the sounds that are beneficial for your life. The ones that drain you or make you feel anxious, those are the ones to avoid. It's really that simple.
So as we wrap this up, the final thought is really this. The sounds you create and the sounds you let into your life are constantly shaping your reality. They are the invisible architecture of your world. So the real question isn't just about what you're going to listen to, but what kind of world you're going to create with your own voice. What sounds will you choose today?